The silence before the storm. The calm that precedes the reckoning. The moment when gentleness hardens into something unbreakable. You want to know what real power looks like? It's not the narcissist's manipulation. It's not their calculated cruelty or their carefully crafted image. It's not their ability to charm and destroy in equal measure. No. Real power is what happens when the kindest person you know stops being kind to you. Real power is when the one who always forgave finally refuses to forget. Real power is a fed-up empath who has reached their breaking point and decided that enough is finally enough. Let me tell you something that will shake the foundation of everything you thought you knew about strength and weakness, about victims and villains, about who holds the real cards in the game of human relationships. The narcissist wants you to believe they're the dangerous one. They want you to fear their rage, their silent treatment, their ability to turn your world upside down with a single sentence. They've built their entire identity on being the one with power, the one in control, the one you should never cross. But they're terrified of one thing, absolutely terrified. And that one thing is an empath who has finally had enough. Because here is what nobody tells you about empaths. Their compassion is not weakness. Their forgiveness is not ignorance. Their patience is not submission. All of those beautiful qualities that make them targets for narcissistic abuse, those same qualities, when finally weaponized by wisdom and self-respect, become the most formidable force a narcissist will ever encounter. Think about it. Really think about it. Who has been doing all the emotional heavy lifting in that relationship? Who has been bending and flexing and accommodating and understanding? Who has been making excuses, seeing potential, believing in change, giving second chances that turned into 200th chances? The empath. Always the empath. And in doing so, they've been gathering data, they've been learning, they've been seeing patterns, they've been quietly building a psychological profile more accurate than anything the narcissist could ever construct. A fed-up empath is dangerous because they know you, not the version of you that you present to the world, not the mask you wear or the image you project. They know the real you, the terrified child beneath the grandiose exterior, the gaping wound you're trying to hide with accomplishments and control, the desperate need for validation that drives every manipulation. They've seen you at your worst and still chose to love you. But now they're choosing themselves. And that shift, that fundamental reorientation of their loyalty from you to themselves, is the beginning of your end. Let me paint you a picture of what leads up to this moment, because it's important to understand that a fed-up empath is not created overnight. They're not having a bad day, or being dramatic, or going through a phase. A fed-up empath is the result of systematic betrayal, calculated abuse, and the slow death of hope. They're the accumulation of every lie they believed, every apology they accepted that meant nothing, every time they silenced their own intuition to give you the benefit of the doubt. The empath has stayed through the love-bombing phase, mistaking intensity for intimacy. They've stayed through the devaluation, believing that if they just loved harder, understood better, gave more, you'd return to being the person you pretended to be at the beginning. They've stayed through the discard, taking you back when you came crawling with promises of change. They've stayed through cycles that would have broken most people, because empaths don't give up on people easily. They see the potential. They believe in transformation. They hope when hope is foolish. But then something happens. Maybe it's one betrayal too many. Maybe it's the moment they catch you in a lie so blatant that even their generous heart can't rationalize it away. Maybe it's watching you hurt someone else and seeing their own future written in that cruelty. Maybe it's simply the accumulation of 1,000 small cuts that finally adds up to a mortal wound. Whatever the catalyst, something inside the empath fundamentally breaks. Not their spirit, but their willingness to keep breaking for you. And this is where the narcissist makes their fatal miscalculation. They think the empath is bluffing. They've seen the empath get upset before, set boundaries before, threaten to leave before. And every single time, the empath came back. Every single time the narcissist was able to manipulate, charm, or guilt them into staying. So when the empath finally draws that line in the sand, the narcissist doesn't believe it. They think it's just another negotiation, another opportunity to deploy their well-practiced tactics. But a fed-up empath is playing an entirely different game now. They're not trying to fix you anymore. They're not trying to make you understand. They're not even angry in the way the narcissist expects. that hot, explosive anger that can be dismissed as overreaction or craziness. No, this is something much colder, much more resolute, much more terrifying. This is the anger of someone who has finally seen clearly, and what they see disgusts them. Here's why this is so dangerous to the narcissist. The empath's entire value system has shifted. All those emotional buttons the narcissist used to be able to push, they don't work anymore. Guilt. The empath no longer feels guilty for protecting themselves. Fear of abandonment. The empath has already emotionally left. They're just making the physical separation official. Hope for change, dead and buried under the weight of broken promises. Love, still there perhaps, but now outweighed by self-love, self-respect, and self-preservation. The narcissist tries the hoovering techniques that always worked before. The grand gestures, the tears and apologies, the promises of therapy and change, the reminiscing about good times, the future faking, the declarations of love. And the fed-up empath watches all of it with a detachment that terrifies the narcissist because they're seeing their tactics for exactly what they are. Manipulation, not genuine emotion. Calculation, not authentic remorse. And here's where it gets really dangerous for the narcissist. The fed-up empath starts talking, not in the vague, protecting your privacy way they used to. No, they start telling the truth. They start sharing their story. They start connecting with other victims. They start naming behaviors. They start shining light into all the dark areas where the narcissist operated with impunity. The narcissist's carefully constructed image, that public persona they've worked so hard to maintain, starts cracking because someone who knows the truth is finally willing to speak it. Remember, empaths are highly perceptive. They've been watching, learning, documenting, even if they didn't realize that's what they were doing. They know where the bodies are buried because they helped you bury them. They know which stories don't add up. They know which relationships you've destroyed. They know the patterns you repeat. They know the lies you tell yourself and others. And when an empath who has been silenced by their own compassion finally decides to speak, the truth comes out with devastating accuracy. But it's not just about exposure. A fed-up empath is dangerous because they become a mirror. The narcissist can no longer manipulate or avoid. The narcissist is used to projecting their flaws onto others, making the empath believe they're the problem. But a fed-up empath has done the work. They've been to therapy. They've read the books. They've connected the dots. They know the difference between their issues and the narcissist's projections. And they're no longer accepting responsibility for the narcissist's behavior. This is psychologically devastating for the narcissist because their entire operating system depends on never being held accountable, never being truly seen, always being able to externalize blame. When the empath stops accepting that blame, stops playing their assigned role in the narcissist drama, the whole system collapses. The narcissist is forced to confront their own behavior, their own emptiness. They are own responsibility, and they're not equipped to handle that. Let me tell you what else makes a fed-up empath dangerous. They inspire other people to wake up. The narcissist's power often depends on keeping their targets isolated, confused, and competing with each other for scraps of approval. But when one empath breaks free and starts living authentically, healing publicly, setting boundaries confidently, it gives others permission to do the same. It's contagious. One person's liberation becomes a roadmap for others. The narcissist suddenly finds that their supply sources are drying up, their flying monkeys are questioning the narrative, their control is slipping. And here's the beautiful, terrible truth that the narcissist can never understand. The fed-up empath isn't trying to destroy them. That would require the empath to still be invested in the narcissist's existence, to still be entangled in that toxic dance. No, the fed-up empath is simply choosing to prioritize their own healing, their own peace, their own life. The narcissist's destruction is just a side effect of the empath's self-preservation. The empath stops engaging with the provocations. They gray rock. They go no contact. They don't defend, don't explain, don't argue. This drives the narcissist absolutely insane because they need reaction. They feed on emotional engagement, even negative engagement. But the fed-up empath offers them nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not hope, not fear. Just absence, just void, just the echo of their own emptiness reflected back at them. This is why narcissists will often escalate when an empath truly pulls away. They'll create crises, they'll make threats, they'll try to weaponize children, finances, mutual friends, anything to force the empath back into engagement. Because to the narcissist, the empath's indifference is a kind of death. It means they no longer matter. It means they no longer have power. It means they're facing the one thing they've spent their entire life running from, their own insignificance. But the fed-up empath has learned something crucial. You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You cannot love someone into wholeness when they refuse to do the work. You cannot sacrifice yourself on the altar of someone else's potential. These lessons were paid for in pain, learned through bitter experience, earned through countless betrayals, and once learned, they cannot be unlearned. The narcissist might find a new supply, someone who hasn't learned these lessons yet, someone whose empathy is still naive, whose boundaries are still weak, whose hope is still intact. And the fed-up empath might feel a pang, not of jealousy but of compassion for that person who's about to walk the path they just escaped. But that pang doesn't pull them back, because they know the truth now. They know that you cannot save someone from a narcissist. You can only save yourself. Here's what happens to the fed-up empath on the other side of this transformation, and this is where the real danger to the narcissist becomes permanent. They heal. They do the therapy. They process the trauma. They rebuild their sense of self. They learn about narcissistic abuse, codependency, trauma bonding. They understand what happened to them not as a personal failing but as a predictable pattern when someone with empathy encounters someone with a personality disorder. And in that healing, they become dangerous not just to their narcissist, but to all narcissists. Because they can spot the red flags from a mile away now. The love bombing that used to feel like fairy tale romance now registers as a warning sign. The isolation techniques are recognized immediately. The gaslighting doesn't land because they trust their own perception now. The future faking is seen for the manipulation it is. They've been vaccinated against narcissistic abuse by surviving it once, and that immunity makes them useless as supply. But more than that, they become beacons for other empaths still trapped in narcissistic relationships. Their healing journey, their boundary setting, their self-advocacy becomes evidence that escape is possible, that life on the other side is better, that you don't have to sacrifice yourself to prove your love. The fed-up empath becomes a threat to the entire narcissistic ecosystem, simply by existing as proof that victims can become survivors, survivors can become thrivers, and empaths can reclaim their power. Let me speak directly to the empaths watching this right now, the ones who are fed up or getting close to it. What you're feeling is not wrong. The anger is justified. The exhaustion is real. The decision to finally put yourself first is not selfish. It's survival. You are not crazy for reaching your limit with someone who has no limits. You are not cold for protecting your heart from someone who broke it repeatedly. You are not a failure for leaving a relationship that was killing you slowly. And to the narcissists watching this, hoping to leer, how to better control. The empaths in your life, understand this. Your time is running out. The world is waking up to your tactics. Empaths are learning to spot you earlier and leave faster. The supply is getting smarter. And one day, you're going to try your tricks on someone who sees right through you from the start, and you'll realize that all the power you thought you had was only ever on loan from people too kind to take it back. Until they weren't, the fed-up empath is more dangerous than the narcissist, because they operate from authenticity, not manipulation, from boundaries, not control, from self-respect, not ego, from healing, not harm. And those things, in the long run, are more powerful than any narcissistic tactic could ever be. Because here's the ultimate truth. The narcissist's power is external, dependent on other people's reactions, sustained by manipulation and illusion. It's a house of cards that collapses the moment people stop playing along. But the fed-up empath's power is internal, self-sustaining, grounded in truth and self-knowledge. It grows stronger with time instead of weaker. It doesn't need anyone else's cooperation to exist. When an empath stops caring about a narcissist's opinion, stops trying to earn their approval, stops hoping they'll change, stops sacrificing for someone who doesn't appreciate it, the narcissist loses all leverage. And a narcissist without leverage is just a person with a personality disorder and a lot of unhealed trauma that they refuse to address. They're not powerful, they're not dangerous. They're just sad. The fed-up empath walks away, not in anger or vengeance, but in peace. They take their light with them. And the narcissist is left in the darkness they created, finally forced to sit with themselves. And that, more than any revenge the empath could plan, more than any exposure they could orchestrate, more than any consequence they could impose, that is the narcissist's worst nightmare. Because the narcissist will move on to new supply, but they'll never escape themselves. The empath will heal and thrive and build a beautiful life. The narcissist will repeat the same patterns, destroy the same relationships, chase the same emptiness until the day they die or finally choose to do their own healing work. The fed-up empath is dangerous because they've broken the cycle. They've stepped out of the game, they've reclaimed their power, and in doing so, they've proven that the narcissist's greatest weapon, the belief that the empath needs them, was always a lie. So if you're a fed-up empath, know this: your danger to the narcissist is not in what you might do to them, it's in what you've done for yourself. You've chosen you. You've honored your worth. You've protected your peace. You've said no when they expected yes. You've walked away when they expected you to stay, and that makes you the most powerful force they'll ever encounter, not because you're trying to hurt them, but because you're no longer willing to hurt yourself. And for someone whose entire existence depends on your self-sacrifice, that's the most dangerous thing in the world.